Okay guys and gals, this is the 6th video in the series How to Build a Reloading Bench, and so now we're going to talk about the top. So as you can see, I have both pieces of plywood in place. They're pretty much screwed down, and so now let me just kind of give you a few things to think about when you're mounting your tops. One, make sure the piece that you want on top facing up for you to see, you identify that and make sure that's the one you put on last and you put it up orientated in the right way, okay? Now, when you're putting the bottom piece on, when both these went on, they were snug tight within the front legs here, but now if you don't have front legs, you want to just make sure they're going to be flush up against the wall. And this turns out to where they're flush up against the wall. I have a little bit of gap there, but not enough to worry about, but I came out just flush with my 2x4, so this worked out really good. So on the first piece of plywood that you put down, let me tell you where you want to put your screws. What I do is I set my screws up to where they're not aligned with the stud in the wall. That way when the second piece goes on, I can set the screws there aligned with the studs, and that way you don't take one screw and run it into the head of another. So in other words, on my bottom piece, I have a screw here, 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 and here, but I don't have them even with the studs. And then of course I have a screw here, 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 and here that you can't see because they're covered by this top sheet. So now once you get that done, you're going to put the top sheet on, and what you're going to do is this. Now you've got to kind of think this way. When you go to set your top piece on, what you're going to do is you're going to go to one end of it and you're going to pull it up even with this front piece of plywood, and you're going to go ahead and set the screw, right? Once you set the screw and it's even, then you're going to go to this end and even it up so it's flush all the way, and you're going to set that screw. And now what you're going to do is you are going to begin screwing this down even with where your studs would be in the back wall for uniformity. It looks nice, you got the screws all matching, but here's the goal. If you set the screw here, you're going to hit the screw underneath this piece of plywood. So now you're lining your screws up on the top piece of plywood with the stud. Now, one thing I want you to keep in mind, you want to use a good 3-inch screw, okay? A real good 3-inch screw. And because it's such a big job, what happens is a lot of times you're going to end up rounding out the screw. Now, here's 2 pieces of advice. If you round out the top of that screw too much, or you find that you actually bent the screw, yank it right there and toss it, and I'll tell you why. You want these countersunk after you run them through with your drill, and here's why. You're going to be working on firearms on this from time to time. Now, I won't be. When I work on firearms for you guys, it'll be on this bench or across the garage, but over time I'm going to have equipment on this, right? So what you want to do is you want to make sure you countersink it. So if you see this starting to bend because of the torque and that you're applying to it, stop, because you don't want to snap it off and have a screw halfway sticking out. So back it out, trash that screw, start over, okay? So if you start rounding out the head or you start bending that screw, just trash it, right? And then last but not least, like I say, make sure you countersink it past the wood surface, because you do not want to take and be working on a firearm that's blued, stainless, or even, you know, a Glock, or, you know, the newer XD Springfields. You don't want to run that across the screw because it will gouge it. It'll ruin your day. And I told a guy at work this. He said, well, I'm not worried about countersinking them because I always work on a gun mat. And I said, yeah, but it always doesn't work out that way. The first time you put a shotgun on there and you swing the barrel, you got a lot of movement on that far end, and that screw's going to take it right out. So make sure when you're done, you can run your hand over all your screws and you don't feel those screws. That really is what you want. So with that in mind, I kind of hope that this is a good overview for you. Now see, this one didn't countersink. So there, I countersunk it. So just back it back out and run it home for all it's worth, right? And get that countersunk real good. And then when you're done, just run your hand over. This is really important because you know over time you're going to be working on a lot of guns on this. So now I guess just some final thoughts on this. I'm going to go ahead and stain it, and I'll show you guys what it's going to look like. On the screws on the back, a little hint for you. On the fronts, because on the bottom you only have a 2x4, you want to go straight with those. But on the backs, because you have the wall in there, I kind of angle them and shoot them in. Okay, so they won't work loose over time. Another thing on this bench, I would highly avoid nails. No way would I use a nail, even if you got a nail gun. Now, I guess if you are in construction, you guys know more than me. Maybe a nail gun is going to work for you, but the screws and the carriage bolts, they're going to hold this thing together, and it's never going to come loose on you. All right. So with that in mind, let's see. Hey, let's see how we did on the level here. So what do we have? Let's turn this thing on. 67 degrees, guys. That's a nice day. 0.1. Let's see what we got here. 0.1. Let's see what we got here. 0.1. Let's see if I can. Okay, 0.1. Let's just. Now you guys know I never try to pull the wool over your eyes, right? Here we go. That's what it measures. Measures that all the way around. So that is a really good stout bench, and it will last you a long time. And so as you guys can see, I'll lower this. Now I got room. This is more than ample for me to store ammo. It's more than ample for me to stack lead on, not a problem. And it's level. It's secure against the base of the house. So now I'll just show you guys this. It's solid. It's about as solid as you can build a bench, and that's what you want. One last thing, if you're building in a house and you have carpet, I understand you don't want to pull the carpet, but put you a rubber mat down from here out to catch your powder, because you don't want powder granules in the carpet. That is bad news. Really bad news. If you ever caught fire, that room would go up so fast you couldn't control it. So you want to try, once you build it, get the rubber mats underneath to where you can pull those rubber mats out and broom it up. Don't vacuum it up. You don't want to vacuum up smokeless powder, black powder. You don't want to be doing that. So get yourself set up to where you can sweep it up. Ideally concrete, and then you can put a rubber mat down on that. Now, one last thing I'm going to tell everybody is, how did I determine my height? See, I didn't tell you what my height of my shelves was, because you don't know and I don't know. I know what mine are, but I know my height. Everything's going to be dependent on your height and who's going to use your bench. Now guys, if your wife hand loads, build a bench to her height. Think about her, and I'll tell you why. As you notice, okay, I build my benches to where it's even with my belt line. So in other words, I could come up here and talk to you, and I'm not stooped over like this, because you don't want to be reloading for a long time with it being too low. So if someone's taller, if you got a taller man, he's going to have it higher. But what you don't want is so high that your wife's up here. That's hard on her back. It's hard on her posture. So if your wife's really into hand loading, I could actually take this bench and divide it with two 2x4s and drop it down just for her, so it fits her body. That way she's going to enjoy it. If the bench doesn't fit you, it's not going to enjoy it. Now, another thing, what you can do, you can build a platform for someone to stand on, so it's comfortable for them. Maybe your children want to get into reloading, and you can't be changing the bench for everyone, but you can build a platform, and I've done it. I've been there. It works really good. The kids just have to be aware when they're standing on the platform not to step aside and fall off. So okay guys, that's the end of this series, except I will show you, I'll do a few little clips for you, maybe progressing along as we stain this, and then we will get it all set back up and we'll be off trucking hopefully with the women's reloading. So that's the end of this video. I hope that helped you out, guys. So thank you, God bless, and have a good day.